we're on. Okay, good morning, ladies. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. That way I don't have to talk to the wall or be by myself. We're going to get started with prayer this morning, and then we'll go into this meeting. Jen was here Tuesday night, so she can attest that I'm going to talk a lot, and so I'm just going to kind of plow through everything. If you could just write your questions down, and we'll have time for questions at the end, okay? Heavenly Father, we just come before you this morning, and we praise you and thank you for this time together, Lord. We thank you for the rain that you've brought to us this weekend and the renewal for the ground and the plants, Lord, for the spring. I just ask that you bless our time together. Give me the words that you'd have me to share, and I just pray over this new group starting, Lord. I just ask that we honor and glorify you in all that we do and say. In Christ's name, amen. Okay, since I don't know some of you, my name is Melissa Hurham, and we have 7 children. They are 20, 18, 12, 10, 7, 5, and 4. And so I have one graduated. He was homeschooled all the way through. He was in school for a little while, but he graduated from homeschooling. My 18-year-old will graduate next month. Yay me! Very exciting. And then the rest of them are my little stair steps. We had 5 and 8 years, under 8 years, so it was crazy. But we are on our way, and we are out of diapers, and it's kind of weird because it's been a long time to be in diapers and then finally out. Okay, so I have been working with students the past couple years in my home. 2 years ago, I did a high school class, so I had my son and 5 other students, and we went through Sunlight Core 300, which is 20th century history and literature, and we had an absolutely fantastic time. I loved it. It may have been my best year ever. I really enjoyed my time with them. And then this year, I've been working with a group of students 4th through 7th grade, and we do a lot. We meet once a week, and we do IEW writing. It's not Sunlight, but we put together a book club because we're studying medieval history, so we just have a book club. We do a little bit of math games, and trying to think of what else we do. We do timeline work, and the kids do some presentations. They present on current events and why are you taking geography. And geography. And the kids have been drawing the world this year. So they work on maps every week, and they draw them, most of them by hand, and label them. And they've learned a tremendous amount, and it's a lot of fun. And the biggest thing that I have done differently this year than I've ever done working with a group of students is they take a lot of breaks, and it does 2 things. It makes my day, we also do science, I forgot, this is my science teacher, and art. So we take lots of breaks, and so at the end of the day, I'm not worn out, and even before, even when I haven't taught all day, at the end of the day, it's just go, 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 and you're exhausted. And I don't feel that way this year. And I don't think the students are exhausted. My kids seem to be fine at the end of the day. I mean, we come to church, we do dance after class, and they seem to be doing a lot better. Having taught in the afternoon before with groups that just kind of go straight through, the kids are really exhausted at the end of the day. And I don't find that with these kids. They seem to still be on track, able to pay attention. And so I am, having 4 boys, a firm believer that, not that girls don't need to wiggle, but I'm just a firm believer that those little kids, they just need some time to get up and move their bodies. So that's kind of part of what I would like to see this group do. So I approached this church and asked if we could start something. And not only are they willing to allow us to use this space, but they are taking ownership of it as their own ministry, which I'm super, super excited about. I think that will make a difference in how our group functions and our relationship with the church, because they want us as they want us here because it's their ministry. So I'm really, really excited about that part of it. This group will be comprised of Christian families, and so obviously our church members will be that homeschool and want to be part are welcome to join, and then everyone else that's not a member of this church is welcome to apply to join our group. So I have an application that I can send you if you haven't seen one yet, and then everyone who is not a member will need a pastoral referral from their church. Our other goal is this will be predominantly academic co-op, and we are looking to teach all of our subjects from a biblical worldview, really just teaching truth in every subject. If we look at academic classes, if they're taught from a biblical worldview, that is all truth, and we don't, not that it's bad to do a Bible study on top of academic classes, but your science should be your Bible study. Your history should be your Bible study, and so that's really what our goal will be, and helping all parents that will be teaching to accomplish that. And then not everyone obviously will teach a class necessarily. Hopefully you will participate, you will assist in a class if you're not actually teaching the class, but everyone will participate. It won't be a drop-off, so all the parents will stay and participate in classes. Now, obviously, if you have, that appointment that you've waited 8 months to get and you just can't get out of it, and you have another parent that's willing to watch over your children for those few hours or that day, that's an acceptable thing, but it's not something where you're going to drop off the whole day and never be here and never be part of our group. And that just provides a lot of fellowship and accountability for all of us, and that's part of why we're doing this. So I'm excited to have more parents around during the day. We'll be meeting 2 days a week, 32 weeks for the whole year, and I just kind of came up with 32 weeks, and my reason being is that a lot of curriculum run 32 weeks. And much longer than that, and you kind of feel like, when is this going to be over? I just want to be done with this already. So I think 32 weeks would be a good fit. The cost for the year, if you are a non-church member, is $150 for the building fee. And that, along with once your application has been approved, and you pay that building fee, then that space for your child is there. Because we are looking to keep this as a very small group, about 56 kids all the way through 12th grade. And so it will be limited. I already have a number of people who are pretty certain that they want to join us, and so it would be surprising if it didn't fill. Maybe the high school level won't be completely full, but those spaces will be reserved. I'm not going to give 10 spaces to first graders so that we're not overrun with little kids with no space left for older students. And then each class will have its own supply fee if needed, and the supply fee will really just consist of what's needed for that class. So none of the teachers will be getting paid, but none of the classes should cost any teacher anything to teach as well. So if they need to purchase a curriculum manual, a teacher's manual for that class, then the students that are in that class will split the cost of that manual. And what we're looking at is, especially for things that will be used possibly over again, that then they will just kind of become property of the group when we're done, since everybody contributed and not one person did, unless it's obviously something you brought yourself. I would think that art would probably be the biggest cost, just because art supplies are crazy expensive. I know my students this year are paying $10 a month for art, and it might not be enough. That might not be enough for art supplies, to be real honest with you. But anyway, I'm excited that the cost will be low, and that those of us with big, huge families don't have to pay $600, $700 a month to be doing this. And I think that with the accountability in the group, it will be a lot of fun. We're going to go from 9 to 3:30. And like I mentioned before, we'll take lots of breaks specifically for 6th graders and under. The older students, it will just depend on how each class is run, how much of a break they will get in between classes. It's pick and choose, the classes are. However, because this is all parent run, I have to have commitments from parents. And so even if you're not necessarily teaching a class, or let's say your child is only taking one class, I've broken our 2 days up into 4 blocks. And I hope this makes sense, but the blocks will go from 9 o'clock in the morning. The first block is from 9 o'clock in the morning on the first day and will end at 1 o'clock, which is after lunch. The second block starts at noon, which is the beginning of lunch, and will end at 3:30. And then the second day, it's the same block schedule, so 2 blocks, so 4 blocks altogether. But let's say that you have a child, one child, they're 9 years old, and you're only going to take science on Thursday, and it's at 10 o'clock. Well, you would still show up at 9, and you would still stay until 1 o'clock, even if you have no other classes. So if your 9-year-old is in 4th grade, then they could go to study hall. Hello. They could go to study hall for those other 2 blocks, and then you would be freed up to assist in a class, to work the mom's coffee bar, to sit in fellowship in the mom's coffee bar, if you're not assigned anywhere else. And so the reasoning for that is so that I know that I can count on people to place them where we have needs. We are looking to have not only fellowship, but also accountability for the students. And to provide that accountability for the students, we need engaged parents. So if you're assigned nowhere and you want to sit in the coffee bar, or you want to sit in an empty classroom and get some work done, or clip coupons, or take a nap, whatever, that's fine. But if you are assigned somewhere, we really need you to be engaged. So what that looks like is, if you're working in a class, you're not sitting in the back on a phone. You're actually helping that teacher out. You're assisting a student that maybe needs some assistance, whatever the case may be. And like during lunchtime, an engaged parent is not going to have their kids just somewhere else. They're going to be with their own children or sitting at another table with another family, so that we don't have a whole table of 10-year-olds over in a corner and nobody knows what they're doing, what their conversations are. On the playground, we're going to be engaged with the kids so that there's accountability. I mean, lots of things happen in large groups when accountability isn't provided. And so that's going to be part of our goal, is just really loving our children through accountability for them and keeping them safe and keeping conversations and all those types of things accountable to one another. And I think that is really important, and I'm very excited to have that. So does that make sense, just the block scheduling, that you will be, if you're only taking one class once a week, you're still committed to the one block? Good? Okay. All right. Some of you may have never taught in a class or assisted in a class, or if you have taught in a class, maybe you've never had parents sitting in your class, which can be very intimidating at first, but you do get used to it, and it becomes a joy, and you're thankful for those parents in there. And so I just want to encourage you that if that has been your experience on either way, that you can teach a class if you've never taught one. I've helped lots of moms learn how to learn the material, be in a class. If you have a brain and can stay 1 week ahead of your class, you can do this. Even without a teaching degree, you can still help students lead, in leading a class. And really and truly, how many homeschoolers believe that you have to have a college degree to teach children? None of us. None of us believe that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this. And so if you are homeschooling and you're helping your own children, you can be in a class with a couple more students and help them too. And that's really all that we're doing. So please don't be intimidated. Don't be shy to not sign up, because we are capable of doing this. And as far as parents being in class, this will also be, all of the classes will be open to parents. So if you want to come in and you need help on the science that is being taught, and you would like to see what they're doing in science, or you need a little bit of assistance and you're trying to learn along with your child, then you're most welcome to come and be in the class. Really and truly, if you keep up with your first grader and you keep up with your second grader and so on and so forth, none of us should ever feel like, I can't do ninth grade. There's just no way I can do ninth grade. Because we can all learn this. You know, this is getting our education back as well. And so we can learn along with our students and be capable of helping them through that next level, and not feel like, well, we have to put them in school this year because I'm not capable of doing it. But in a group, it's fun. So the things like, for me, art that you just don't want to do, somebody else can do those things. All right, so my role in this group will be to organize all the classes, organize the parents, and provide accountability for what we put in place. And so that means if you are assigned to clean up some area or whatever, or if you're the teacher in the class and the assistant, I will be going back to just verify that things get done, and just provide accountability in that. And then so that will kind of be my role. Hopefully I will get to be in a classroom with kids as well, and because I found out that I love being in a class with students. I would have never thought. My first year in a group, I really wanted that group for my kids desperately, and I was still in a phase of my life where I liked my children, but not necessarily yours. So I really wasn't looking to teach, but I was desperate. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do this. I loved it. It was so great. I had so much fun. So if you think that you don't want to be in a class with kids, just give it a try. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed my year. And I then went, and after that year, I was the director over the group, so I wasn't in a classroom anymore, which I enjoyed as well. But then I got to go back to the classroom and loved it, and taught grammar. Well, I taught all day, but one of the classes was grammar, and that's like my favorite thing ever to teach. I love grammar. It's so much fun. So that will kind of be my role, is to just put all of the details in place and help people to remember what their roles are. That will be mainly it. Okay, so we have several academic classes that I kind of wanted to go over and how those look. So like I mentioned earlier, this group will stay small. We're looking at about 56 kids. So 16 students from about 4 years old through second grade, third grade. Third graders are kind of, at least for this group and for the curriculum I've chosen, could go either way. They could either go younger or go older. So they're kind of, it just depends on which way they fall, how they'll be counted. And then 20 kids for grades like 4th grade through 6th, 7th grade. Again, the 7th graders could kind of go either way depending on what their needs are. And then the 7th grade and up will have about 20 spaces that I'll save. Right now, I think we have about 10 in that age group. And then most of the younger classes will all run. I have them in hour breaks, but they won't necessarily go an hour, because most classes will only, for the younger ones, will run about 40 minutes with a 20-minute break. So if we can quickly get them outside, go to the gym in the big room, just so that they have time to fellowship and move their bodies around, I think will be great. The classes that we have for the younger ones for math, that is going to look more like a study hall. So if you have a child lower than, say, pre-algebra, they will not be actual classes. This will be a math study hall. So they will bring their books that they're using. You will bring your teacher book and the grading book in, and there will be someone assigned to that class who can, say, read the problem to the child who can't figure out the words, or they're just stuck. This isn't really necessarily a math tutor. It's just someone who's in there willing to help students that are independent in a sense that they've already been taught, they just might need help. Like, what's the next step on long division? I can't remember. Or I can't figure out, what operation I'm supposed to use for this word problem. So you just might go in there and help them figure out that, this is a more problem, or this is a takeaway, problem that they have. Where in the older classes for the pre-algebra and up, we will actually have classes for those students with someone teaching lessons, and those classes will run twice a week. So for both the younger and the older, math will be twice a week, because we all need math every day, and if you leave the house without doing math, you're probably not going to do it when you get home, and you're probably not going to do it before you come to co-op. So we're just going to plug that in so that we all have time to get our math done during co-op day, because the goal really would be that this day would be, if you stay all day and say you did all of the classes, which my children will be doing everything, that at the end of the day they really shouldn't have any work to do. Maybe they'll have to, read at the end of the day, but that, I don't consider that work. I think that's fun. That's, bedtime stories and stuff are good things, regardless of how old your children are. So your day should be done if you do everything at the end of the day. Science for the younger grades, about kindergarten through 6th grade, even though the classes will be broken up and they all won't be in the same class, we'll all be working on the same curriculum. It has not been chosen yet. I did put out a sheet at our last meeting and asked for people to let me know what they're looking for the elementary curriculum for science. Not one person has told me anything. So I would imagine that anyone who's going to be teaching science will choose, and we'll all just go along with it. For all the classes, you're responsible for buying any of your books that you need, so none of that will be provided. And my husband is self-employed, so I am like really crazy about copyright stuff, and so everyone's going to be required to own their own material if they're required to own it. So if the book says okay for a class, that's fine, obviously, but if it's a book that we're supposed to own, we're not going to be making copies and passing them out to everyone. Just to keep it all on the up and up and keep the integrity of our group, and to honor those that have poured their heart's work into whatever it is they produced. So if you could just keep that in mind, that you'll have to purchase all those books. So that's the elementary science. The older science for junior high and the beginning high school kids, we will have general science and physical science offered. Those classes will predominantly be run as lab courses. Really anything that we offer that we don't have someone who's comfortable teaching. A lot of these courses have videos, and personally I would rather have a class full of kids for my child to be with and watch a video than to have no class, have to buy the video anyway, and be at home by ourselves. So for general science, for instance, currently we have about, I think, 7 students signed up for general science if they all join us, and nobody willing to teach it. So we might be doing a video and then like one day video, one day labs type thing, and hopefully someone will step up to do that. And then same thing goes for, say, physical science, or we're also offering Latin, So if we have enough Latin students and not enough teachers, there are videos for all of them. So I'm willing to teach Latin, but if we don't have enough teachers, I'm not opposed to a video, and we'll all just contribute to the cost of it. The ones that I own, we can just borrow from me, and we'll be good. The book club portion of the day is kind of a history class, but it's just a book club. All of the selections will come from Sunlight, and I have 3 levels currently. So the first one is level A, which kind of is off my main topic for the year, but that's what they offer at that age level. And it's for 4-year-olds through about 2nd grade. If you have a 3rd grader and you have younger children, then you would probably want to keep your 3rd grader doing the same curriculum as your younger children at home. It just makes things more cohesive. But if you have a 3rd grader and you only have older kids, then you may want to have your 3rd grader do the older curriculum. So that level A, it's world cultures, and we won't be doing everything because Sunlight has too much. So if you do not want to do Sunlight at home, you don't have to participate in the book club section, because the teachers will just be selecting books that they will be reading and going over. And what I mean by going over is, this year we've done a little bit of different things. Some days we're using like a literature guide for the books that we've done with the students that I have this year. Lately we've been acting out the books, so everybody gets a part. We did Robin Hood that way, and the kids absolutely loved it. I have 2 students in class that they just have brains that master everything that comes to them, and they don't even have to review it. They just know it. They know every little detail. So I've kind of assigned them as the director of our little play for the day, and then we write down all of the characters in the scenes that we're going to do, and the director kind of directs the other students. So I have 2 of my children in the class, and they don't have those brains to remember every last detail. So even though they've gotten the material, they may not remember exactly what that character did or said. So the director kind of tells them what they're to do, and they act it out, and it's a lot of fun, and everybody participates. And then we've also gone through where it's more just kind of question and answer. What happened here? Or tell me what happened next. So it's nothing specific. I do try to point out any literary skills that may come up, like if we have studied similes in our writing program, I try to point those things out, or ask, like, did you notice something? Right now we're reading a book called, what is it called? I Rode a Horse of Milk White Jade, I believe. And it is, the language is so beautiful. It's amazing. This author, just like the way it rolls off your tongue when you read it, it's probably one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. The language of it, not necessarily the storyline, but the way she writes it is just amazing. And one of the students, the last time we met, actually mentioned that on her own accord, that she didn't really care for the book, but it was beautifully written. So we talk about those things in book club. So the 4th or 3rd through 6th or 7th graders will be doing Core D+E, which is U.S. history. And then the older kids will have books from Core 100, which is also U.S. history. And that core goes, I believe it is 8th grade through 10th or 11th grade is what it says on it. I have it sitting here so we can look. But most all of them have a large age range, so you can feel pretty comfortable finding a place for your student if you choose to do that section of it. So they're kind of historical fiction biographies that are read. Again, we won't do all of them, so if you're not doing Sunlight at home, your child could still participate in these classes. My kids are going to be doing Sunlight at home, so I like it. And then we will be doing geography, and it will all be US-based geography, and it is the book, and I don't have it up here, but it's Trail Guide to U.S. Geography. It's through a company called Geography Matters. And that will kind of go along with the book club, and that will really be just for the older students, so say 3rd grade and up, if they're participating in the D+E section. And then,
I'm sorry, would 100 do geography then too?
yes.
Okay, that's what I figured. That's double check.
Yes. We will offer Latin if you have never taken Latin before. If you've never considered taking Latin before, I want to encourage you. You might think, yeah, no, we're not doing that. But did you realize that 90% of all English words, all bisyllable English words, I should say, come from Latin roots? If you know Latin, you are better able to have better reading comprehension, SAT scores, and all those other types of tests. Your vocabulary goes up knowing Latin. So I am a big proponent of learning Latin. We have not done Latin this year, but we generally do. So we will be offering song school Latin for the youngest ones, Latin for children for the middle grades, and then first form Latin for the junior high, high school level and up. And I have 2 things that I like to share about learning Latin and how, well, one, I started because I read The Well-Trained Mind when I started homeschooling. And this is our 11th year homeschooling, and I read that my first year. And any good, well-trained mind reader is going to start Latin as soon as possible. So I did, but I really wasn't sold on it. And then we were reading the Pilgrim's Progress book for young kids called Dangerous Journey. And so we were reading that book, and as we were reading it, you know, we were going along, and normally when you read to your kids, Mom, what does that mean? Stop, what does that mean? Or I'm thinking, I'm not sure what that means, right? So we're reading along, and so something was laudable. And I had never in my life heard that word before. I'd never seen it, I've never read it, I'd never heard it. And I didn't, like, I still to this day, because no one's ever been really honest with me, if I'm like really behind the curve that I didn't know what laudable meant, or I'm very typical and nobody else knows what laudable is either. But that week we had learned the Latin word laudo, which is I praise. So laudable is just praiseworthy. And my 3rd grader and my 4th grader and myself 11 years ago, we understood it. We understood that sentence. We didn't have to stop and pause and think about it because we knew what it was because of that Latin word we had just studied, and it just made a very easy transition into the English word. So that was like my first aha moment of Latin. And then later that year, I had my children doing those little tests in public school where they read a book and they have to go on the computer and answer questions. And so we went to our local public school and took this little test, and my 3rd grader was reading a book on government. So he had to answer questions about the different branches of government. And so I could see him struggling on the question about the judicial branch. Maybe he couldn't even pronounce the word, I'm not sure. But he was struggling with that question. He was really stuck. And then all of a sudden he was like, oh, and he said, Utico! And Utico is I judge. And he made that connection, got that answer right because of that one little Latin word that we had recently studied, Utico. So that really sold me. So I have loved Latin since then. I also love Latin because it teaches you logical thinking. It's very systematic. It helps with my favorite English grammar. And it's like a puzzle. I just see Latin and music and grammar as a puzzle. And so I just love the way it fits together. I love watching my older kids when they were doing Latin in high school, how they could just get it. And they were just able to translate sentences like there was no tomorrow. I can't do that. But it was so exciting to see it and so exciting to see them come up with these things. And like, how did you know that? Like, I'm not great at logic, but it's very logical. And so it kind of all works together. And if you love learning music theory, if you love the puzzles of math, Latin will just be more of that for you, and who doesn't want those things? So I encourage you to do Latin. Try it out at least. Then we will also be doing music and art. The music that I selected for the younger kids is from a company called Maestro Classics, and they are classical music where you learn about the composers, and it's kind of a story format. I don't own it. I've never used it. I've just researched it and like it. So that's what I'm hoping to do for exposure to classical music. They have also created an entire art program that goes along with it. So art will kind of piggyback off of that, but it will depend on who's teaching. So if the art teachers are also involved in the music and they like what the music company has put together, they're welcome to use it, but they're also free to do whatever projects they want to do. This year we started out doing a lot more formal art and then moved to more project-based art. And I will tell you that, not that there isn't a place for formal art, but our kids have really liked the projects a lot more than the formal art. So I think that the teachers should have the freedom to do what they want to do in the class and kind of gauge the class to the students that they have in front of them. But it's potential that they're going to kind of relate or go together in some way for that, but they'll be offered on separate days. We have sewing and Spanish offered. Those will likely be like, we probably wouldn't put a 4-year-old in those, and even the Spanish will likely be more for the older kids. The sewing, we have someone who's teaching sewing. She's willing to offer a beginner and an advanced class. Currently, I have a beginner class scheduled, and I can't find space for the advanced class. And all of the people that have signed up so far are all in the beginner class, so that's still kind of a work in progress. And I kind of threw Spanish in there because I have a child who's taking Spanish. I've had a request for Spanish from older students, and I felt like we needed to offer something for families that have children in sewing. So that's really, not that I don't like Spanish, but that's kind of the only reason why Spanish is there. So it wouldn't be something where your second grader is really done for the day, you're not taking sewing, but you're going to take Spanish. It would kind of only be for families who are here for sewing, if that makes sense. And then for writing, we're using a program called Institute for Excellence in Writing. And so that will be for students who are about second grade and up. The youngest kids will likely use a book called Bible Heroes for those students, just to keep it on their level. If you have never used Institute for Excellence in Writing, I highly recommend it. I love it. Before I started using it, I kind of felt like, I don't know how to teach writing. I don't understand why your paper isn't very good. I can't really help you. Not sure what to say. How are we going to get through the next 10 years, right? And then I was introduced to Institute for Excellence in Writing. And basically what it is, it's 9 units. And once you learn the 9 units, you could teach any level all the way through. But they have other resources. So this really isn't, all the 9 units are in this book, but this really isn't the core book of teaching the 9 units. This is a resource book. And so basically what they do is every week the children are given a great resource, piece of literature to work with. So for instance, this one here is on the Middle Ages. It's just a little paragraph. They are taught how to keyword outline this paragraph, how to tell the paragraph back, and then they're taught how to write their own paragraph. So they're not copying it, they're writing their own. But systematically, they're taught things like, we are no longer going to use banned words. So dun 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 dun, no banned words. And believe me, once you start teaching banned words, they're going to find every banned word that you ever say and write for the rest of your life. So banned words are things like pretty, big, bad, good. Right. So there's a yeah, there's a whole list of banned words, and it can kind of become a game to not have those banned words in. And then they have a resource book where if they have a banned word, they can go to their resource book and find a new word. So we're talking about students who, I'm not saying they don't have anything in their brain. I'm just saying that a young child has not been exposed to the level of material, and they don't have the level of vocabulary that an adult would have. So we are not looking to only have the students that have that maybe the higher vocabulary or the better creative writing skills to shine. We want to show every child that they're capable of writing and doing really well. And if you have not read an IEW paper before, you're going to be like, wow. Your husband's going to say, why did you write her paper? And you'd be like, seriously, I didn't write it. I didn't. They wrote it themselves, because they're that good. And so we get rid of banned words, but then we also add things, and they're systematically taught how to add words. Let's get a great LY word in there, and then you get to add some grammar, which is always awesome. You know, so what's an LY word? Well, we're going to describe a verb. And so that's where we're going to put an LY word. They have a list of LY words so that they're not having to just come up with these things out of their head. So students may initially balk at the writing program because a lot of them don't want to write, but they are going to gain confidence very, very quickly. And it's amazing to see the work that the students are able to do. I will say that if you have young children, the creator of this program, his name is Andrew Pudawa, and he will tell you, do not make this a spelling lesson, a grammar lesson, a penmanship lesson. This is a composition lesson. So if you have a young child and they need to verbally tell you the words and you write it down on the paper, that's what you do. If they need you to sit there and assist them to find the verb so they can put a action verb in there, then that's what you do. This is not a sit down, you're independent, you do it by yourself, you know, you need to, I'm going to tear this up and you're going to rewrite it because it's too sloppy. None of that. This is composition work. And so if you really keep that in mind, it will make your life a lot easier in doing this. And you will learn to love this program as much as I do. I don't know anyone who doesn't. Okay, so that's IEW. There, for the younger kids, there will be a formal presentation class. And the way that will work is the kids will every week have the opportunity to present something. So if they're very little, it might just be kind of a show and tell every week. As they get older, moms will potentially assign things. This year, the students that I'm working with, they are alternately assigned current events. If you have ever worked with Sunlight, they highly recommend that every student works on 3 current events every week, 2 international and 1 domestic. And so what we have done in our class is we just assign one person, so that family brings in the current events for the week and that child presents them. So the kids are still getting the benefit of the current events, hearing what's going on in the world, and they're all age appropriate. And where it's happening in the world, so they're connecting their geography to it, but the families aren't having to do the hard work of finding the current event and reading the article and figuring out what's going on. So that could be part of the presentation class. We also have students who are alternately assigned to give presentations on countries that we're studying in the world, and they present on an area of the world that we're currently studying. So this coming year, all of the presentations will be on states. And the kids don't all do this. Sometimes they do. They've done multiple presentations, so maybe they'll do this sometimes, and then the other one, they'll just have their notes in front of them to present. So this isn't like a project class.
And IEW teaches how to present from notes.
Yes, yes. Right, they might bring in a little treat or something that goes along with what they're doing. My husband is self-employed. He cuts things out on this big machine. And so he has started cutting out my project boards. So I'm sure that he would cut out our project boards at cost if people want project boards, something we could do, because I surely do not want to pay $8 or $15 for a big one every time my child does a project. So we could have those really inexpensively if you want to do this, but this is not a requirement for that. As they get older, the way presentations look is they stand up and they say, hello, my name is Melissa Hurham. Today I'm going to be telling you about this new homeschool group at Kempsville Baptist Church. And then you talk about it. That's the end of my presentation. Are there any questions? And so it's just kind of systematically, they go through this every week. Every child will have this opportunity. The parents are in charge of what the child presents on. We can get a list together of ideas so you don't have to come up with it. It could easily be something that they already are good at, already know about. It's not something that they have to spend time every week researching and learning something new to present on. And so someone who leads that class is just going to call up the next child. They're going to help teach the students what does a good audience look like. You're not going to sit there and crinkle your snack paper. You're not going to get up and throw away the eraser that popped off your pencil while the presentation is going on. And then for the speaker, you're going to help them out, not all at once. This is something that you want them to get comfortable with, and then as the year goes on, maybe the teacher will make little eyeball cards. So every person in the audience will have an eyeball card, and then when I've made eye contact with you, you're going to flip your eyeballs up so I know I've hit you. The teacher knows that I've looked at you, I've made eye contact, you've seen me look at you, so you're going to pop up your eyeball cards, that type of thing. We're going to help the students know that we're not going to talk like this, we're not going to read our paper like this, we're not going to have our hands in our pocket, twirl our hair, lean against the blackboard, those types of things. And really, I will tell you, outside of Latin, to me, it's probably one of the most important things that you can have your children doing as soon as possible. Your shy child, your child who doesn't like to be the spotlight, you're one who does like to be the spotlight. They all need this, because eventually, at some point in their life, they're going to be asked to give their testimony at church, and how many of us don't have to pretty much go vomit before we do it? You know what I mean? Seriously, you don't want to get up there and do it. Nobody does. Nobody likes it, and it's only by practice that they can become proficient and comfortable at doing it. And I will say the most growth that I have seen in any student working with students for the past 9 years or so has been the growth in presentations has just been tremendous. I just cannot tell you. It makes you weep, seriously, how great the kids become at giving presentations. And for the high school kids, though, all the presentations will be within their classes. So if they're assigned something for science, it might be they're assigned that week to learn the lab and teach the lab. So that will be their presentation. If they're in book club, maybe they're going to be assigned the book, and they're going to have to lead the entire discussion on that book. So they're going to have to stand in front of their class. They're going to have to give the introduction to the book, come up with questions, be able to handle their audience, and they're going to be in charge of that. If they're in geography class, maybe they would give a formal presentation on a state at that point. Different things. So each class will run differently. In an IEW class, in all of them, they will be reading their work in class. So that's another opportunity for presentations. And I think for presentations, in my opinion, having worked with, I don't know, a couple hundred students probably on this exact subject, I would make your child do presentations. However, if you are leading a class, we don't ever want to make a child push them further than they need to be pushed. We want to give encouragement and be an encourager to them, because every person is at a different place. Just like an adult in a Sunday school class, Sunday school teachers are kind of taught. You don't just randomly call on people to read in class and humiliate them, because you never know what they're struggling with. The kids are the same way. They have their own struggles, each and every one of them. And so we don't ever want to call a child out, single a child out. One of my kids struggles with anxiety pretty bad. And so she has done these things in the past, and so she will come around, but it might take her a while, you know. And I just want to encourage the parents of children who this will be a struggle, that we are not going to squash your child. That is not the goal of this. This is purely encouragement and helping them gain skills at the pace that they can gain them. So it might be that that child sits at their desk for a few weeks to give their presentation. It might be that, and this will kind of, will talking to the parents will tell you, my child really is not ready. Can they just sit in for a while? You know, we want to warm these kids up. We want them to feel comfortable and confident doing this. This should not be something that they ever walk away from and they're scarred for life, that, you know, they were forced to do whatever. So I also want to encourage you all in that if you have a little one that is just struggles in that area, this should be a shining light class, not a dreaded, terrible thing. And it's fun, and most of the kids eventually love it. It's hard to get them to sit down, and that's really what we want. All right, the last academic thing that I want to talk to you about is memory work. And the memory work that I have chosen is through classical conversations. And it really, when you study memory work, the whole point of it is to train your brain to retain information, learn how to learn. So the memory work we use is not the end-all be-all of what you should know in life. It's nothing like that. It's just a training. That's all it is. And we do it in a really fun way. So if you've never worked with memory work before, you might think, oh, well, that's dry and boring, and I don't see the point in that. This is only for students who are about 6th grade and under. Sometimes there's a 7th grader that could use to stay with the younger kids, and they're just not ready to move forward yet. But for the most part, it's usually about 6th grade. And so if you participate in the memory work portion, you will have to either purchase this book, which is the Foundations Guide. I believe if you buy it new, it's still $60. Do you know if it's gone up? Yeah. Okay, I think it's still $60. You can find them used. If you don't want to purchase this, there are also memory work cards. So it's the whole year of memory work, color-coded, laminated, hole punch, so you can stick them in your purse and work with it at the doctor's office or waiting on your other student in their piano lesson or whatever it is. And these, I think, are usually about $29, right? You can get them in a PDF download, but I wouldn't waste your time. It's not worth it. And then there's also, you can get audio CD, or you can get an app for your phone. The app is probably the most cost-effective way to do it, but you would just kind of have to decide what it is that you want to have access to, what will be going over in class. So that class will be run where they are learning 7 different subjects, and they're just learning a little chunk at a time in those subjects. And when we do it, it's an active class, so we try to, at least every other subject, have them up and physically doing something. So we might do hand motions to a history sentence, or do like a clapping game for math facts, something like that. And so they will go over Latin, and this year we are, it will be Cycle 3 material, so if you're familiar with this information, they're translating John 1 through 7 from the Vulgate translation, or from English to the Vulgate translation. And Vulgate was chosen just because that's the Latin translation, and that's the only reason why they use that. The geography will all be U.S. geography. So with the younger kids, and I didn't bring my bears this week, but you could use gummy bears, you could use counting bears, you could use little fish, you could just use their finger, whatever. And so they're just going to go through. And so this week you see under geography, I have the ones highlighted that they'll go over. So you're going to take your bear and you're going to say, okay, everybody start here. Do you see where I'm at? We're going to put our bear on Annapolis, Maryland. Everyone say Annapolis, Maryland.
Annapolis, Maryland.
Good. Okay. Now I want you to move your bear and I want you to put it on Virginia. Do you see Virginia? Everyone say Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia.
All right, let's go back to Annapolis, Maryland. Put your bear on Annapolis, Maryland. Say Annapolis, Maryland.
Annapolis, Maryland.
Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia.
And so you're just going to go on like that. For the older students, they might trace it, they might draw it in class as they work on memorizing these things. If you do this memory class, outside of class, your workload will be about 20 minutes a day. It's a very quick review. You do not have to feel like you then have to go home and teach every fact about Annapolis, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia. You're just memorizing these things. They're little pegs of information. So as they get older and they are learning more details, they kind of have a place to store it. The history sentences, like I said, are all to songs. So the one for this week is, tell me about the Boston Tea Party. And it's in 1773, colonists dressed as Mohawks dumped tea from the British East India Company into Boston Harbor. So it's a song, and you might do some hand motions to it. Oh, please, come right up here. And the kids have a lot of fun doing it. And again, if you want to, you're most free to go home and teach on that sentence and what it means and what were they doing and what was the tea about. You can go home and do all those things. But in class, we're just memorizing that sentence. So as they get older or as they're reading a book from Sunlight or from something else that they've read that they're studying, they have a basis of, well, when did that happen? What was going on at that time? They already know. Oh, it happened in 1773, colonists dressed as Mohawks. They know it. My 28-year-old and 18-year-old know these songs today. I mean, it's crazy because you sing them over and over and over again. And the little kids, because they're in what we call classically the grammar stage, they just want bits of information. They really don't need all the details. So it's okay if you don't. If you want to, that's fine, but you don't have to. They'll learn a science sentence. Again, you could do hand motions. The timeline, out of all of the things that we memorize, I think the timeline is likely the most important thing. They go from creation through present day, learning the timeline in just bits and pieces week by week. So this week, and again, there's a song to this timeline. It's Hinduism in India, Phoenicians in the alphabet, Olmecs in Mesoamerica, Israelite Exodus and desert wandering, and there's a couple more cards. So you see these cards here. You do not have to purchase the cards. Some families use the cards a lot. They are very nice. They're laminated, they're thick. The backs of them have a little blurb on what that event was in history. It shows it on the timeline. It shows a map of where it happened. So they are nice, but it's one of those things that you're going to either use them frequently or you're never going to look at them and they're going to sit in a box. But the reason why you want to learn the timeline is because it gives you pegs of information for life, really. So anything that comes up, you have a place to put it, or you're like, oh yeah, that happened. That was kind of like in between when the Israelites left Egypt, but then they had the Israelite conquest and Judges. That's where that fell. Where if you don't have that, things come in and you have nowhere to place it, and it just is gone. I will say that my education growing up did not give me a timeline, and geography, things that come in, I don't have a place to store them. I don't have a house for them, so they just kind of poof. I can't remember them that well. Where I look at the timeline kind of like a long coat rack. We have a long hallway in my house, and with this many children, we've got this long, it's just a wood plank on the wall. My husband's a carpenter, so it's a little prettier than that, but it's pretty much a wood plank on the wall with pegs, metal prongs sticking out to hang our coats on. If you think of the old-fashioned type coat rack, it would have been a wooden peg hammered in there, right? So if you think about this timeline in that sense, if you hammered that wooden peg one time and tried to hang a coat up on it, it would fall on the ground. So you've heard all these things before, but if you hadn't placed them and memorized them, then new information would have nowhere to go. So you pound the peg several more times, you might get a light jacket on there. But if you keep learning this and you keep pounding this information, eventually you'll be able to hang, your husband's heavy leather coat on that hook and it's not going to fall. But then further, you'll be able to hang coats on all the hooks, and then when it's wintertime, you'll be able to stuff the hats and the scarves in between the coats, and they're not going to fall on the floor. They might not even be on a peg, but they're not going to fall on the floor because you've got somewhere to place them. And so that's really the goal in learning that timeline. One of the moms at our last meeting asked, well, why aren't we learning Proverbs or some good poetry or something like that? And all those things are laudable. However, this is just what I've chosen to do. I've used this for several years. I really like it. I think it's very well put together. I've watched my older children go through this material, and then they're in junior high and high school and not actually working on the skill of memorizing. They're remembering the material, and it's helping them. When they open up that biology book, they don't have so many basics to learn because they already know it. When they're working on hard algebra problems, they already have those facts down, and algebra is a lot easier if you know your math facts. So those are the types of things that I like about it. So really learning Awana verses or scripture or proverbs or good poetry is going to give you the same skills of learning how to learn and learning how to memorize. It just won't give you that basis of knowledge that I'm looking for my kids. So that's the only reason why that was really chosen. Okay, I think that I've covered, the one thing that I didn't go over was grammar, and I completely skipped that at our last meeting. So the students who are beyond phonics will have the opportunity to take grammar, which will just be short bits. Even in the high school, they will have grammar kind of attached to their IEW class, but the IEW will be the main component of it, and the grammar will just be almost like short review type stuff. And I chose grammar, one, because I love it. Shall I say that again? I love grammar. But even my high schooler, currently, he's in his last week of an online college class. He's doing a dual enrollment for an English. It's his last English class. And he has had 4 tests that are predominantly grammar. It's a grammar test. That's all it is. And it's, he's having to recognize parallel, can't even think of the word, but if you say like either this or that, but they'll have like to stand and then rolling. Well, those aren't parallel. Why are they not parallel? Because this is an infinitive and this is a, can't even think of the word, conjunction. No, not a conjunction, whatever the word is. Anyway, gerund, yes. Okay, I knew it the other day. I just couldn't think of it right this second. So anyway, those are the things that he's still working on. And he hasn't really had a formal grammar class since 6th grade. I mean, he's done lots of Latin, so he's worked on grammar, but he hasn't really had that formal grammar class. And so I have not chosen an actual curriculum for grammar. It will depend on who's teaching, who's wanting the class for their students. My guess is that we will probably wind up with Shirley Grammar. I've never used it, but I've used similar things, and just the reviews and people that I know that use it would probably work well for our group, is my guess. All right, so the last part that I have to talk about is on rules. So obviously, even though this group will be small, There will be rules written out. I have not actually written it up yet, and anything I write up will have to go through the church staff to make sure that it's all on board with what their goals are for their ministry. But there will be guidelines on dress and behavior, and things like, if we are going to be, I suppose I should start with, we're going to be using the children's wing predominantly and the youth area in this building. And so if we have lunch in the gym, we're going to have to walk down this long hall to get to the gym. I have a lot of kids at my house who are always touching my walls, and my walls are either always disgusting or always being washed. And so when we walk down the halls, just simple stuff like, we're not going to drag our hands against the wall as you walk. We're not going to do that. We're not going to kick the wall. We're not going to jump off the wall. We're not going to hang on the coat rack going down the hallway. You know, just exactly. So just things like that you know, we may need to just address, and just know that these will be the expectations. We're not going to run in the building. We're going to take good care of what has been given to us. We're going to be leaving the classrooms and the spaces that we use hopefully better than we found them, although they do a really good job here, so that might be difficult, but at least as good as we found them. And with dress code, you know, just looking for modesty and not to be drawing attention or be a distraction for anyone. And so kind of back to my role, no one likes to point things out to people, and no one likes to have things pointed out to them, but that will kind of be part of what I will have to do. So if, you know, you come in and you or your child needs a little assistance in their dress, you know, you might need to go home and change, or, you know, pull up the undershirt that you have underneath your shirt or whatever. If I'm sitting on the floor working on a project and my shirt rides up and my pants ride down, please tell me. Please tell me. And just know that I will love you guys enough to tell you those things too. And so really it's just about caring for one another and caring for our kids and setting a good example. And so I know lots of groups have those rules, and some do better than others at enforcing them. I'll kind of have to be the enforcer. So that's the good news and the bad news, though, really. So I think it's great to have those things in place so everybody can be on the same board, but then also have them enforced so that when we start getting sloppy about whatever it is, that we can pull each other back up to where we need to be. All right. So I've mentioned that we will only have about 56 spaces, and I have had a tremendous amount of interest for this group. And so I encourage you that if you are looking to join us, if you think that this might be a good fit for your family, that you get your application in, get your pastoral referral in, because the applications won't be processed until that happens. And I just don't want you to be under the impression that you have all summer to make a decision. All of the other groups generally about this time kind of do all their registrations and all that, and so I know that everyone is kind of feeling pressured to make a decision and figure out, am I going to get in this group or not get in this group? I can't tell you until you fill out your application and apply. Applying does not commit you to the group. So if you apply and then make a decision that this isn't going to work out for you, the schedule that I put together and publish, or you know, another group has more of what you're offering, or whatever it is, that is completely fine to put the application in and then not join us. But if you don't put the application in, I can't get your child in a class. Like I can't block out your space. Hold on one second, and I'm going to answer your questions. And Pastor Tim has said that he can get an answer back to you in about 3 days. So if all the applications will go to him. If you've already filled one out, you don't have to fill out another one. I've already given him your application. But if you have a new application, I can send it to you if you don't already have it, and then it will go directly to Pastor Tim for them to review. Your pastoral referral can either be emailed or mailed, snail mail to Pastor Tim. And then he will let me know the applicants that have gone through staff. And if it's people that I don't know or whatever, then, we'll probably set up some type of a get-together, coffee, play date, depending on the age of your children, how that works, to be able to kind of place you in classes and see what classes you're interested in, to get placement. And then once all that happens, as long as the building fee's been paid, then you have space. Looking at those block schedules, if you are a family who's only going to take one block, then I might be able to open up those other 3 blocks to other families. But I would not open them up without knowing that you definitely, like once you're an accepted family, you have all the blocks until you tell me you don't want this block or that block. And then I could potentially open that up to someone else if it worked for their family. So I think that's all I have. So now if you have questions, I will be glad to answer them. Yes? As far as getting you the details, the day starts at 9 o'clock and goes to 3:30. I do not have the hour by hour down yet, partly because if I have 3 people willing to teach IEW, I would rather see 3 different people teach IEW at the same hour than to have one person teach all 3 IEW classes at different hours. And I just don't know that until I have more commitment from people. I'm starting to get an idea, but I don't have it yet just because I don't have the people to place. Does that answer your question? Okay, yes. Yes.
Where's your restroom and water fountain?
Straight back here. Yes.
What is there? You can take off your jacket.
Is there a facility fee or what is the fees?
The facility fee for non-members is $150 for the year, and then each class will have their own supply fee. I would love it if we could have the teachers know the supply fees at least by the semester, because I do not want teachers to have to be collecting every month. It's just too much. When someone doesn't pay you, you feel awkward to ask them. It needs to be paid up front, really. And because this is so low cost and we are looking at the building fee will need to be paid right away to save your space, but the supply fees don't really need to be paid till probably mid-August. We have enough time to kind of save up and have teachers get their plan together so they can charge a supply fee.
And what's your requirement for parents as far as participating, staying, drop off?
We discussed it. You can watch the video.
Yeah.
The first,
That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. It's not drop off. Parents would be staying and participating, and yes.
I have a question. Well, hi everyone, I'm Angie, and I am new to homeschooling. My daughter is an 8th grader, and
This year or next year?
this year.
She's 8th grade this year.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I brought her home in December, and I've heard wonderful things about classical conversations. I'm just wondering, would that work for her, for someone who's starting so late in the game is what I wanted to know. I heard wonderful things about it.
Yeah.
And also, she's currently doing the IEW herself.
Okay,
right
great.
now with a friend of mine.
That's actually the group that I was with. I was with Classical Conversations for 7 years. I was a director for 5, and I was a support manager, so I was over several groups in the area all the way through Smithfield. Valerie's currently in Classical Conversations, so this is not Classical Conversations.
Oh, okay.
It's
I didn't know because I heard you mention.
there's a lot. I mean, there are a lot of things that are classical about this group, but it's not. It's different. It's a
Okay.
different thing. So it will be a totally other subject.
And I understand you said once you put in the application and you pay the $150, that holds your spot.
Yes, and that will be non-refundable. That
Okay.
that
So-
part.
if you're not sure about the group or if the group works for you, whether it's the scheduling or the
Yes.
classes?
I would apply, I would put the application in, and then by the time you get approval, and I will have a schedule out, so you'll be able to see that.
Okay.
You'll be able, you'll have a little bit of time
So you don't
to
pay
invest.
the fee right as soon as you put in the
No,
application?
no, the application is just to see if you would be a good fit for this group. And then once the pastors determine that, this will be a good fit, and part of it, honestly, is we just can't have 50 first graders.
Right.
So your application may not be accepted solely because of the age of your child. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so we have to look at the group as a whole to make sure that we have a good fit. And, obviously I'd be willing to talk to you later, to help you determine, and you can meet with other groups, and I would encourage you to visit other groups just to kind of see what is going on and what would be the best fit for your family as well.
Does your child get the opportunity to go to some of the classes so that they can just get a feel for?
For this,
Yes.
we have not started. This is brand new.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Jumping ahead.
Yep. Yes.
First of all, you've done an amazing job putting this together.
Okay,
This is
thank you.
Huge. I have a lot of questions. though.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, the $150, is that per family or per child?
Per family.
Second, you said if they don't do all the classes, they can do
Yes.
study hall where they could do like their math or something like
Yes.
that. All my kids do teaching textbooks, which require a computer.
Yes.
Computers be allowed.
Yes, we do have access to Wi-Fi, and so for your specific children or children who are doing like something online, let's say it's a high school course and they take an online course with Potter School or whoever, they can have access to Wi-Fi, and there will be open classrooms. So I think that as long as there's adult supervision in the classroom, if it's something where they could have headphones, then they could just plug into a current study hall or a current math class if you want them to do math at the math time, and they can wear headphones and do it. That would be perfectly appropriate.
Do you know what the lab course is for the upper grade science?
The only science
curriculum.
we have right now is general and physical science apologia.
Apologia.
Yes.
Um,
And my guess, just from what I've talked to people, that people really like the lower level apologia, so I would think that we would use one of those as well.
Grades. Are there grades administered by the teacher?
I think that will depend on the class. I would prefer that there are grades administered just because kids tend to work a little harder. But I think that would be, that would kind of go on be part of each individual class. I also plan to assign graders. So it might be that if you're not assigned to a class, you might be assigned as a grader. And so the IEW paper, if the teacher is not grading papers, like I will teach IEW, but I will not grade papers. So I can give you a grade if the grade comes to me first, and I'll mark it down gladly. So you might be assigned as a grader, and so maybe the math book comes in, the math sheet, and that's why the mom is going to bring her grade book to co-op, and maybe we'll just have a box where all this stuff needs to be graded. If you're a grader, then you're just going to sit here and you're just going to go through and grade stuff. So that might be part of it.
Field trips.
I have requested to ask for someone to be a field trip special day coordinator, and I do have someone who's interested in that. I am not a good field trip person for a couple reasons. I work a job. I have 7 children. I homeschool. My husband's self-employed. He works endless hours. I also have a special needs child that has lots of appointments. And so it's just one of those things that I don't do a lot of field trips. I cannot put a lot of field trips together, but if someone else is willing to do it, I would love it. And I do have that on the application. Are you willing to be that person?
I have just 2 more, I'm sorry.
Nope, you're good.
One thing that we ran a little bit of a problem and where my kids are at now that one is like 3rd through 6th grade, one's 7th through 9th grade.
Yes.
And the problems that I have ran into is that, like the 3rd through 6th grade, she's a younger 3rd, can't spell a lick,
Mm-hmm.
and has been struggling. Does great, but I have to work with her so much.
Yes.
That pretty much that class has mastered like all of our school. Or the 7th or 9th, same thing. She was 7th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just way over her head, and trying to keep up.
Yes.
These 2 classes have been
Killing you.
awful. Just
Right.
Completely awful.
Yes.
So I'm a little worried. What if a class is difficult? Like you're going to have kids on so many different levels in
Mm-hmm.
a class,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just trying to keep up, as you know, with multiple children.
Right.
I'm concerned about keeping up with all of their workloads and different. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
is it something that they can independently do? Some things, a lot of different subjects, and
Right.
how to keep. Is this something that a lot of it they can do on their own?
It's going to depend. It's going to depend on the child. I mean, just like anything else. And with the IEW stuff, with the younger ones, if you are that busy and don't want your 3rd grader or your 4th grader to do it, partly because you don't have the time to devote to it, don't.
Well, the way
You
you
know.
described it was wonderful. Like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because she was graded on spelling and grammar, and and she's 9.
Well,
But the way you said it, I'm like, well, we could have handled that.
yeah.
Boys at that IEW, they dictated into the phone.
See.
Yes.
Yeah. See, that's.
And so
I could kick
and they
myself.
would
'Cause I
never,
should have pulled them out.
they would never
Yeah.
propose. My
Oh.
oldest is smart.
Or type it.
Yeah,
Required
my
to
oldest
type.
is smart, and so his
No.
original purpose
No.
was,
Mm.
what is the shortest sentence I can possibly write? Because
Right.
I do not like writing.
Yes.
And so he dictates it. They write
And
amazing.
My philosophy in any subject your child takes is, or presentations or whatever, I use like an idea of going to the Grand Canyon. So if you go to the Grand Canyon and you are afraid of heights, it could be very scary. If your child is afraid of heights, it's very scary, right? So you're not going to travel all the way to Colorado, Arizona, to the Grand Canyon and not look at it, right? You're going to make your kid look at this Grand Canyon. There's no 2 ways about it. They're going to look. But are you going to put a harness on them and throw them off the edge? Or are you going to kind of hold their hand, cuddle them, and help them feel comfortable enough and give them enough support to look at the beauty of what God created? So whether you're dealing with science or IEW or a math book, you want to encourage them and push them a little bit, but don't throw them over the edge. Nothing should be a screaming match. And if you're screaming and they're crying, it's time to back off. It's time to hold their hand a little tighter. It's time to give them more support in whatever subject it is.
And since I've taught IEW in a co-op for quite a few years, there's grace.
Yeah. Well,
There
now
are, and
I
there are
know.
times when I look at my child and I say, you did the outline, good enough.
Right.
Because they've been sick or we struggled with getting the concepts down. So the fact that you got the concepts down this time, good enough. And then come to the teacher and say, this is where we got today, and this is good enough. As far
Yes.
as it goes, the parent should have the final say.
Absolutely.
What was required
Yes, yes.
And what
Yes.
should be graded or assessed. I don't
Yes.
like using graded, I like assessed.
Very.
Did you meet the requirements set out? Did mom change your requirements and you met those requirements?
Exactly.
I'll assess that based on the IEW standard, but mom decides what to do with that grade.
Mm-hmm.
And mom decide what standards to set. I teach IEWB at another co-op right now, and I have one child who still is struggling with dress-ups. So I just looked at mom and said, I want just keep working on the dress-ups. Forget openers, forget everything else.
Right.
I don't care about all the extra stuff, but he's got to master these dress-ups appropriately, correctly. The LY can't be an adjective because sometimes they end up as adjectives until he masters those, and that's all I'm grading on.
Okay.
His content is perfect. He
Right.
always writes for what
Yeah.
I need him to write about, but the dress-ups aren't there. So
And
we're
that-
just concentrating on
That's
dress-ups.
great. My last question is smaller siblings.
We will have nursery, preschool area. If you have a child who is very clingy. If they're a baby, you know, babies can stay with mamas wherever they need to go. But I really feel like the younger siblings that are really too old to be on mama's hip need more space to run around, but aren't really in a class, really should be in the nursery. So they're really not going to be welcome in the classes, but we will have, you know, nursery, preschool stuff.
Like an organized thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they'd be going outside.
Oh, yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. And then really, you know, if you have a child in there and you're not scheduled anywhere, you're welcome to pick them up and have them sit with you in the coffee shop, or, you know, I think that this needs to be family friendly and family oriented. And I have a little one too, and I surely do not want him sitting in the same room from 9 to 3:30 all day. We do have quite a few preschool rooms, so my idea is to set that up where they actually move rooms for different stations throughout the day and have outside time. So that's kind of what I have brainstormed so far. Hold on one second, let me go behind you here. Yes.
That was one issue I had with CC, is that they're one day together and it's 8 hours in one room, the same teacher, the same place. I'm like, whoa. My husband's a psychology professor, and that is not okay. You contextually learn by moving around. So my question to you is, these classes, will they be changing?
Yes.
locations?
I have not gotten that far, but that's a good point. But I agree with you, and I have, my one child is in a co-op this year, and he moves around, and he is doing phenomenal, but he's in my class now and not doing well, because we are in the same room with the same kids all day, and he cannot handle it. He can't. And so that was part of my motivation for this, is that I did not want to go back to the co-op that we're in, and this child needs something. And so that is an excellent point that I will completely take to heart, because my child needs it too.
It's good for learning. The response I had from one of the directors was, they're not learning, they're reviewing on this day at CC. And I'm like, all learning happens. Come on, homeschoolers, we learn in bed, we learn at the kitchen, we learn everywhere.
Right.
It's learning happens in parts of day.
Yeah.
I was very comfortable with that. Because
Yeah.
my daughter and I were exhausted by the end of that day. I'm like,
Yes.
okay, we can't do this.
Yeah.
And she loves to learn.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like if she felt like that at the end of that
Yeah.
day.
And it's a great program, and I suppose, having never thought about that before, because my husband taught Challenge 2 for 4 years, you know, and I was the support manager, so I was over all of the directors. I had never considered that, but I would think that they could rectify that, you know, depending on the building. They could make that change a little bit to help that. I had just never considered it, and no one ever brought it to my attention. And I, at that time, did not have a child who had that obvious need until now. So.
Another question, you said the classes are 40 minutes and then 20-minute space of playtime. Is that just for the little ones?
That's what I have for the little ones, like actually scheduled in, where a teacher would not have the option to go over, because those kids need to move. With the older ones, it would probably just depend on the class, and it might be something where the teacher could get out in 40 minutes, and so then the rest will be a break. But they're not as likely to go outside and play football or, you know, slide down the slide or something. So that will look a little different, and the teacher would have the ability to go, you know, 50, 55 minutes with a class. But hopefully, you know, it will just depend on the needs of the class, really.
2 more questions. What classes do you still need teachers for?
I don't have it like on the top of my head. What I have done, and I didn't forget you have a question. What I've done is I have sheets out here for all the classes that we have offered. So even though you haven't applied yet, if you could just go ahead and write your child's name down on the classes you think that you're interested in, and then on the right side, if you're willing to teach any of them, and I already have you down. Yeah. if you're willing to teach or assist in any of the classes, write that down on the right side. So on the left it says children, on the right it says teach. So go ahead and fill those out, just so that I can start looking at placement of children and placement of teachers and getting a schedule together of classes. So if I know that you're willing to, lead this class or that class, then I know the math classes, no one wants to be in the math study hall. But, so we might just be voluntolding some people into those rooms. I know. But, so anyway, so that's kind of what I have done, and that way I can kind of start placing, and then if for some reason we have just way too many teachers, then I'll just start interviewing and making the best decisions from there. So.
And the last one I had real quick was, how many 7th, 8th graders do you have so far?
I think 10. Yes. Yep. Okay, Angie.
I wanted to know on the IEW, do you know which one you were thinking about? I've heard of some places where, I know one place they were speaking of, what is it called, advanced history, which also gives you the history and it gives you the English credit, it gives you the Bible. I didn't know, maybe which one.
It does not really give you all those credits. So if someone told you that, you either misunderstood or they were mistaken on what they were saying. This class, if you're looking for credit, will strictly be a writing credit. That's all it gives you. Regardless of what book you use, it doesn't matter. It's not going to give you all that. The book that I have here is Middle Ages. You can look through it and see that it's really not all that. Michelle, no. Michelle is going to be likely teaching the IEW for that level, and it's Narnia 2.
So we'll be reading through the Chronicles of Narnia, the last 3 books. She's doing the volume 2 now, or volume 1?
She's doing language in the wardrobe, I see her book.
Is one?
That's 1.
Okay,
That's
so
1.
she'll
be perfect for 2.
yes, she's,
No. What, are you doing it as an IEW class? Or are you
Yeah, she
just
has
reading the book?
No, she has an IEW
Then
class.
if she is reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, she is in volume 1 because I'm teaching it right now at another co-op.
Okay.
So she would be ready for volume 2 perfectly.
I don't know it all, like I said,
I know.
knew. And my girlfriend is the one who
Mhm.
has her master's in communications and stuff, and homeschooled her son all the way through. Now her daughter, this is her last year, she's going off to college. She was such a blessing to us and was kind
Yes.
enough to teach Leah, and I think you may be right that I think I may have volume 1, because I remember her saying to me, that she can always move it up at a high school level or something like that, but I'm not positive what volume it is, but maybe
Well, if
it
she's
is.
reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, she would have read The Magician's Nephew, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then the last book is The Horse and His Boy, and His Boy. That's volume 1.
Okay.
And then we do the next 3 books in volume 2.
Okay.
But you don't have to do volume 1 to do volume 2. I want
Correct.
to make sure that
Yes.
that's clear, that
yes.
it doesn't really matter. The books stand by themselves.
Because this is really, again, going back to, it's a writing course. It's
Yes.
not history and
Yes.
spelling and all that. It's writing.
You have to read the book to be able to write, but it's not required. It's not.
Okay.
And so you're doing core 100 history for the 8th through 10th, I think you said.
It's 7th, 8th through 10th or 11th, yes.
Okay. And what was I going to say?
They will not be doing all of it in class, though. So if you, they will likely do enough to definitely give a history credit, but the core, and I have some information up here about it, that core 100, she would get if you actually purchased the whole Sunlight program or got the guide and rented the books from the library, she would get a history credit and a literature credit for that.
And how does that work? Like, let's say you're not here the entire day. Maybe she's taken a couple of your classes that you have on your board, but she's
Right.
not taking everything.
Yes.
I heard you, but I was trying not to interrupt. and
No,
wait
no,
till
that's
like
that's
you
what this
said,
is for.
so,
That's fine.
So I'm not sure how that worked. Like,
So if, let's say, for instance, we have science in the morning and writing in the afternoon, and those are the only 2 classes she's taking, then you would commit to at least one of the blocks, either the morning or the afternoon. So let's say you're going to commit to the afternoon. So in the morning, let's say science is at 10 o'clock. Because you're not really committed to that first block, you don't really have to come until 10 because you're going to be here the rest of the day. Where if you commit to the first block because her writing class is at 1 o'clock, so you're really done by 2 and you want to leave at 2, then you're going to come at 9, commit to that first block so you can participate and we can get to know you and you can get to know us. And then at 2 o'clock when she's done, then you would be free to leave because you haven't really committed to that afternoon block. And then any of the time that she's not in class, she would either be with you if you're not committed to anything and you guys have work to do, or she could go to a study hall. If you are assigned somewhere, then she would be in study hall if she's not in class. And our study halls will be quiet study halls with a study hall monitor, so they will be doing work. If they have no work to do, then they're going to read a book. If they have no book that they brought, there's probably a Bible on the shelf in every classroom. They can read the Bible.
Are you sure?
Angie, are you done?
I had one other question, I forgot it.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Go ahead.
Sick days. If we are sick,
Yes.
That's a good one.
um,
Yeah.
well, do we find our own substitute, or a lot of times
What
with a lot
what
of
I
kids,
have,
we wake up and someone's
yes. What, and please stay home. If what I have done in the past is I have, and it took me several years to have this like ta-da moment. I have kept a sub list. So basically, it's just a list of the parents, and when you're used as a sub, you get crossed off and put to the bottom of the list. And then, so like if we need 3 subs, then bam, 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 you're the subs.
No, are
If
we responsible for finding the stuff?
no, it's just a list.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even going to do it. I'm just saying, here's the list of subs for the day. So if you walk in the building and I already know Victoria is sick and she was supposed to lead presentations, Valerie's up on the sub list. She's now the presentation leader. Or Jen was supposed to check the bathrooms at the end of the day and she's not here, and Michelle is now the sub. She now has bathroom duty. So it's just going to be an automatic. So it's not like, well, I really don't like to clean bathrooms. Well, you know what?
So I don't-
You're the next on the sub list. So here we go.
There's a revolving sub list.
Yes.
So I'm not responsible to no one's
No, the only time that it would really be a problem would be like in a lab class or a class that is more prep heavy for the teacher. Then those kids may just have to sit a study hall or work on their next thing. Like if it's IEW, they're just going to have to read the next section in their book. Science, they're going to read their textbook, something like that.
So 2 comments. What if it's not a sick issue, but you have a scheduled out of town?
Right.
Then can you give the person well in advance?
Oh yes.
How do you?
If you're say teaching IEW and you know you're going to be on lesson 14 and you're going to be out of town, and I know you, but I don't remember your name. Amy. And Amy is willing to be your sub, then you could just let her prepare that lesson, or you could give her whatever it is you prepared. I'm saying last minute. If it's a last minute thing and you just aren't going to be here, or somebody freaked out and you just know that you shouldn't bring them in the building,
So then in that case, we would be responsible to kind of.
that would be ideal, because especially if it's a class that needs to be prepared for, those kids are going to pretty much sit in study hall if you don't.
Well, see, I'm in a club now where I am a sub.
Okay.
That's my job.
Yes.
And so I think it's helpful to give as much preparation, but there's
Yes.
someone, like we have a Friday manager, or whatever, Thursday manager that calls people
Mhm.
and lets them know. So there's someone to organize that
Mhm.
planned absence. if you
Yes. Yes.
will.
I think that we will be small enough that it's not going to be a big deal for you to say, hey, Amy, in 3 weeks I'm going to be out of town, or can you, and hopefully you're going to know who can sub, who would sub, I want you to be friends with Amy so that you know that she's, you know what I mean?
Well, and that's it, honestly, the co-op is not, what I'm at is somewhat like this, but there's a lot of drop-off, and so the parents don't know.
Okay. Yes.
I mean, I know, because it was my second year there.
Right.
I know the people, but
Yes.
they may not know me.
Yes.
So that's why they have this Friday, and I came from a co-op in Pennsylvania that was very much a co-op community.
Yes.
We had a party manager too, to just help with that, so.
Yes.
But it,
If you would like to be the Thursday manager, you're hired.
Maddie's a great presentation teacher too.
Okay.
Just throw that out there.
Okay, let me go to Jen. Go ahead.
Okay, real quick. So, since I was at your last one, and
Yeah.
I just knew that you wanted to keep the video like at a certain.
Yeah.
But this is real quick. We haven't covered these that you covered last time.
Okay.
So, do they need background checks for the church to
Oh, good.
teach?
Yes.
So that's one thing. And then
Okay.
the other thing with that is, what about a template for the pastor's letter? Do you have a template of certain things you want your pastor to say, or just have them write a letter?
Just have them write a letter.
Right.
Okay.
That was two of my questions. I have two more.
All right, let me answer those two. So with the pastoral referral, we're really looking to keep this co-op a truly Christian co-op. So not only will the teachers be required to have a Christian testimony, but the whole family should be an actually practicing Christian. So I've had a couple people give me comments that they aren't members yet, they moved, or they're switching churches, something like that. I think all those things are reasonable. Really, they are just wanting to know that you are at a similar church. So doctrinally similar, you're actually participating in your church life at your church, your pastors or your Sunday school teacher or someone at your church is familiar enough with you to be able to say, yes, I recommend this family, and this is, they would be a great addition to your ministry. As far as background checks go, it is on the application. Because this is a ministry of Kempsville Baptist, you will, all of the parents that will be participating will need a background check. The background checks will have to go through Kempsville Baptist. They are, I believe, $16. So if you are not a member, you will have to cover that cost when it's done.
And then the other one was a few of us were talking about, would it be possible maybe to add a sign language ASL, like on the time where you have sewing in Spanish?
Probably.
Would that be a third thing that would be offered? at
Sure.
that time? Okay.
Because there's nothing else going on.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've just heard a few families interested in that.
Yes.
And then the last thing you mentioned that was important was lunch, how you wanted to run lunch.
Okay.
Do you remember?
Thank you. Yes, I do. So lunch, and this is just my ideal, it's not set in stone. There is a room upstairs in our youth department that it would likely be enough seats for all of us to sit in. So what I would like to see happen for lunch is that we would go in there and sing patriotic songs, because our kind of the topic is U.S. history. And then, because a lot of our kids have never heard them, don't learn them, we don't sing them at home. So we would sing patriotic songs, and we would also have just a short devotional that hopefully one of the pastors, or if there's a dad there, that they would lead a devotion. So that would leave 40 minutes for lunch. We will meet in the gym for lunch. So within the gym, there are enough tables set up, and it's large, and we will probably kind of block it off so that the whole gym is not open during lunch for the time that we eat, just because lunchtime will be an actual sit down, eat your lunch, not eat 2 grapes and run around the gym and drive everybody crazy the rest of the 40 minutes. So we will eat lunch. There will be an expectation that your children will be sitting. They even have high chairs, so if you have a runner and you need to strap them down, they have some high chairs for families that have little bitty ones. If it's nice outside, I really encourage everyone to get a little picnic blanket or something so that lunch can actually happen outside, because if we eat in the gym, we also have to clean the gym. So if the weather is nice, I think that the gym will not be used at all, and it will only be reserved for inclement weather. And then after we eat, then we'll play. You know, they'll just be kind of free play. Some people have asked if we'll have like a PE gym type time. I do not see it in the schedule as being feasible, and I think that breaks need to be reserved for free play. They just need time to play and not be structured, because we have although there are a lot of breaks built in, there's a lot of structure built in as well. Yes.
Two more. If we have abroad kids that are different ages.
I'm just going to ask Jen, will you cut that off? I think that we're good. Yeah. Bye. I hope you enjoyed it.